Good afternoon, everyone. We are here at the IAC 2024 in Milano, and this is our booth, the booth of Space Renaissance International and of the Space 18 SDG Coalition. That is a coalition of 105 organizations that joined together to promote an 18 SDG based on space, civilian space development to the UN, to be added to the 2030 UN agency. We are now today with Alberto Cavallo. That's one of the founders of Space Renaissance International, and he is an expert of different things, among all energy, because it's also his job, his professional work, and about space philosophy also, and about strange new thing that is called astropolitics. So I don't know if maybe he will say something also on this topic that is not that easy to be discussed in a few minutes, but maybe we could try. So I will give the floor to Alberto. First of all, asking him why he supports the Space 18 SDG, and why he's also very active in this campaign. And of course, we discussed this thing in our board and in our committees several times. And I think Alberto has some interesting original point of view that maybe he will share with us.
Okay, thank you, Adriano, for this question. Of course, we discussed very much about this thing. Thank you all for being here and listening. This theme is extremely important for us, and we are very happy to see that this coalition is growing and growing, and this is very, very extremely important. I'll go back and just resume why we are here and why the 18th SDG is an important point. You know, of course, nowadays, everybody in the world is talking about sustainability. Also, this IAC has sustainability in the motto, in the name of the Congress. And what have the 17 SDGs of UN in common? Practically, they are everything that is desirable for the world. Of course, there is everything. There is the possibility for everybody to have food and to have an habitation, for the possibility to have development, the protection of the environment, both on ground and under the sea. But essentially, everything that is desirable is there. But unfortunately, the Earth is a single planet with a limited surface and limited resources. And the human population of the Earth has already reached more than 8 billion. And the level of exploitation of the resources of Earth, and the main resource is not just a single kind of resource, but is the capability of the planet to recycle everything and to keep going by recycling all the waste and coming back and ensuring that life can go on as always it has done before. So what we are saying, what our coalition is saying, is that we cannot obtain the 17th SDGs without the 18th SDG, that is thinking out of the box. That means moving out of the planet Earth and looking for not only for resources, but even for space for development, space for settlement, space for industrial development, but not only, in general, space for human development. What we mean is that space is not just a place where you make exploration and science. Still, here in the IAC, I think the majority of sessions and majority of the exhibition areas talk about exploration and science. Some already talk about industrialization, some kind of industrialization, mostly about concerning the moon. But this is the point. The time for doing only science and exploration has ended. This is the time for expanding humanity into space. That means, first of all, having economic viability. Because the first point is who pays? Who pays? The economy. We must create an economy in space that is not the space economy as many intended. Because space economy is not sending a satellite to give telecommunication to Earth, send the satellite to observe Earth. Always this astronautics with the feet on the ground. What we mean is going to space to create an economy in space. It's not a utopia. We can do it now, and some are already working at it, and we are already seeing signs of it even here in the IAC. First of all, exploiting the moon to take materials, because if you want to use materials in space, it's much better to take from the moon than from the Earth for clear energy reasons, because it's much easier to send something from the moon to space than sending it from the Earth. The concept of the gravitational well. Then, without going too much into details, probably many understand this. But the essential point is that we must develop economy in space, and then we must develop human presence in space. And this will mean that the humanity is not limited to one planet, and this must be a goal for everything, for everyone in the world, and not limited to some nations that may be interested to do this for their prestige. The essential point is that we must go there and for all humanity. Neil Armstrong said we have gone for the whole humanity, but his flag was the flag of the United States. I didn't see a flag of the United Nations on the moon. We should think about this point. Why didn't Armstrong place a flag of the UN on the moon beside the flag of the United States? That, of course, it was good there because the United States organized the mission. We should have a mission placing a UN flag on the moon, for instance. And then the main point is starting development, industrial development of space. And this can be done now, not in some decades or some years. Last Sunday, it was a perfect timing. I don't know if Elon Musk chose it for this reason. I don't think so, but it was perfect because the first successful test flight, the fifth successful test flight of the Starship, showed us that we have new means to go to space, but they are not enough. They are just the beginning. They are just the way to bootstrap development in space. Then the next step will be exploiting the moon. Next step will be, and the further step will be making factories in space, and then bring technicians and engineers in space, not astronauts. Technicians and engineers that do industrial work in space. They are not astronauts. They are common people. In the beginning, technicians and engineers, but then have a complete population of space, having the O'Neill colonies, because I think that Gerard O'Neill should be our ideal reference, because he studied this almost 50 years ago, I think, if I'm more or less, in the 70s. In the 70s was studied. So, and he placed all the things in the right place. If you take his book, he wrote more than 50 years ago, everything is there. And many didn't understand what he was saying, because he was saying, don't bring things from the Earth, bring them from the moon. We must start from the moon, then move to industrialization of space, then move to population of space. This is not in a long run. In the long this is the time frame is in the decades, not the centuries. So this is the main point. So for starting this, we have put this 18th SDG. We want to discuss it in the UN also. I think that is very difficult in the current political climate. It will be accepted and officially introduced, but maybe it's possible, maybe not. But even if it is not received as an official SDG, it's very important that we discuss it, bring it to the knowledge of everyone in the world, and so more people can take conscience of this necessity of expanding humanity into space. And this is our goal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alberto. You said very important things, and I took a note in my mind by now, but then I will immediately took it in a more concrete way, that to have a UN flag on the moon could be asked to the Artemis, to both to Artemis and ILRS missions, because so far we don't know who will be first on the moon. But what we could ask as a Space Renaissance International and as the 18 SDG coalition is that whoever will be the first on the moon, put the flag of the United Nations on the moon. So this time they will go really for the whole humanity, bringing the flag of humanity. That would be a wonderful initiative. And I think it will become one of our parole d'ordine, our keywords.
Our mottos.
Our mottos in the next months before 2025. Okay. I think we go ahead to the next question. And the next question I will give to Alberto, considering his huge experience in the field of energy, is this one. So the so-called green transition seems that is, if not failed, is near to fail, because one of the main premises one of the sorry, some movement here around. I was distracted. However, 10 euros each. Okay, so somebody wants to buy some of our stuff here. Okay. So one of the main premises, maybe the first one, is not happening as the strategist of the green transition has thought. And this is energy. The point is that energy demand is not decreasing as it was in the premises of the green transition. The energy demand is not only increasing, but it is skyrocketing. So what is the reason of that? The reason is artificial intelligence that uses a lot of supercomputer power, and this is very energy demanding. The electronic money, credit cards and bitcoins and everything, use a lot of money on the big servers to move the money around the world. And the big data also, the big data in the clouds. Now there are many clouds conserving data from a lot of customers. Also, these are supercomputers consuming a lot. And not to talk about the electrical mobility. Also, this is electrical power consuming very much. So the energy demand is not decreasing at all. On opposite, it is growing very much. So the point is that renewable source energies market is growing, and the cost of renewable is accordingly decreasing. But the fossil sources are growing as well. And the two of them together, renewable and fossil, are not equal to the demand, to the big demand that is rising. So it seems that real alternatives on Earth don't exist. So if we don't go outside and we don't start using solar power in space with a very higher yield, because there are no season, no day and night, and so on. So you can get the solar power 24 hours a day continuously, and so on. If we don't go outside and start to use solar power in space, There's no other solution. We don't start moving outside and moving outside our industry, decreasing the demand of energy on Earth. There's no other solution. If we don't start putting in orbit big servers, big computers that can be fed by solar power directly, it seems that the earthly solutions don't exist. It's not nuclear. It's not. We already have seen the limitation of the renewables. But yeah, I think okay. These are my consideration on the topic of. Look, the topic of energy is the key topic of development on Earth. Everything we do needs electrical energy now. So okay, Alberto. I'm sure you have more interesting things in mind to add.
Yes. Okay, of course, it's a good question, and it's not so easy to answer and not so straightforward from the point of view of space. The main is absolutely true that the one thing is happening that was unexpected a few years ago, because everyone thought that the diffusion of the virtual world, the diffusion of internet, the idea of working on the cloud should reduce the requirement for energy, because material industrialization and material development should decrease. What is happening is the opposite, because artificial intelligence, big server farms, and so on, they are increasing a lot the consumption of energy. Their necessity for energy is huge. And basically, they are what was happening in the recent years is the famous energy transition. That means reducing the use of fossil fuels, mostly coal, that is the most important from the point of view of emissions of greenhouse gas emissions, because there are many things to be discussed. It's very complex. In any case, for greenhouse emissions, coal is the worst. But also oil and gas in reduced amount, but they are also important. Reducing them and increasing the renewables seemed to be the solution. Unfortunately, the increase in power consumption due to server farms used for all internet functions, cloud functions, and now artificial intelligence is so large that now the increase in production, thanks to renewables, is being used just to feed server farms for AI and for in general for other uses on the internet. This is true. From the other point of view, essentially what we can say at this moment, I don't see in the short term that space-based solar energy on the Earth can be the solution. There are several reasons for that, but essentially we cannot think that it can be competitive in the energy market if we don't start earlier than what I described previously. I described the industrialization of space. If we industrialize space, if we are able to take materials from the moon to have factories in space, then we can manufacture big solar satellites in space with material taken from the moon and with built-in factories that are in space, and then space-based solar power can become competitive. I think this is the only way. So it is not an enabler. It is enabled by industrialization of space. In my opinion, otherwise it will not be possible. It's true that here on Earth we have other solutions, and we should all know. I have a person. This is not a position of Space Renaissance. It's my position. My position is that the recent development of nuclear energy are very good, and we are going to the right direction. And Google is already doing this. They are planning new server farms on Earth with a nuclear plant besides. And this is and we should also think about the new generation power plants. Don't confound this with the old nuclear. The new nuclear, I mean the fourth generation nuclear, as I personally met several times with startups working in this field, they can use the spent fuel of all the reactors as fuel. Nucleo's motto, Nucleo is a new company in Italy that is developing fourth generator reactors. They say, we don't want to use uranium that is extracted from mines. We will use the spent fuel from the old reactors. That means that is called the nuclear waste, by the way, but in fact, it is only spent fuel. Spent fuel can be used. So this will be needed on Earth, because in any case it will be needed, and we will need nuclear power on the moon too. And I personally, this morning there was a big presentations about nuclear power on the moon here in IAC. There was a session about energy, and this session was about that. In any case, it's very true that in space, solar energy is a good solution when you are free floating in space, not where you are on the moon. If you are on the moon, you are in a very bad situation because you have 14 days a month of darkness if you live on the moon. So in those 14 days, you have to live somehow without solar energy. And I don't think about the solar energy to be beamed to Earth. I think about solar energy to be used by factories in space. By space economy based on solar energy in space, using solar power systems created in space by factories in space by using material from the moon and from the asteroids. And by the way, I'm not talking about asteroids of the main asteroid belt. That is an old thing that is being discussed. I'm talking about near-Earth asteroids. Near-Earth asteroids are so near that they can fall on our heads sooner or later. And by the way, the dinosaurs got extinct because of that. Near-Earth asteroids are as near as the moon. This is not the point. And on asteroids, you have also a lot of material. We must develop the industry in space, and then we can make good use of space-based solar energy to increase industrialization in space. This is my personal idea. This is not an official position of Space Renaissance, but it is my personal idea.
Very, very much. Okay, so thank you so much for that. And of course, you in this last talking, you have touched an important point, that is in the beginning, the bootstrap of industrialization, on the industrial activities in the geolunar space, and which are the next steps to go ahead toward that. And for sure, this is a discussion we have in the Space Renaissance. The orbital debris could be one of the first steps in the direction of an industrialization of the geolunar space, because we can use orbital debris as in situ resources, because they are already in orbit. They costed a lot to launch. They have a delta V that is useful, and therefore, why not to reuse them? So they can be taken, dismantled, the big wreckages, of course, and separated in their components, and then reprocessed to get powders for 3D printing and other things, and aluminium to make fuel. Because aluminium, a lot of second stage of rockets are orbiting. There is a huge quantity of these materials and can be reused. So we think that producing fuel in space will be the second step after having a fully reusable launch vehicle like Starship working. Producing fuel in space, so not having anymore the need to bring everything from Earth, will be the important second steps. And of course, it will need to have factories in space, to have workshops, to have everything needed to make industrial processes in orbit and in the cislunar space and so on. What is the perspective, Alberto, considering what is there, not some science fiction vision? So what is there? Artemis, and ILRS are the two projects to start working outside, to start making something outside. And we don't know if we will see soon a real moon village for civilians, or we will see something like another ISS for astronauts going there for maybe 6 months and then to change. So it will be still in the exploration paradigm, no, not yet in the civilian settling paradigm. What do you think will be the development, the roadmap to maybe in some decades, as you say before, because it's not a very short process, but it has to start and to have a strategy. The point is to have a strategy, because we could even continue for other 50 years making exploration, and without going ahead 1 meter on the road of civilian development, making things for civilians and not anymore only for astronauts.
Yes, good question, of course. And I think the first step could be having small factories in space, in orbit, to make things that can be made easily and more easily, or even only in microgravity. I think there are 2 fields, essentially. One is the biological, I mean, producing pharmaceutical production that can be done for special substances in much better in microgravity. Other things are special materials that can be developed in space and cannot be made when there is gravity. Because, for instance, if you mix materials with different densities on Earth, it's very difficult to have a good mix. In space, it's not a problem because you don't have gravity. In other materials, for instance, are metal foams that are extremely light but cannot be created in an environment of gravity. This everything about this can be the starting point for industrialization. And the other part is that we must immediately start to experiment space stations with simulated gravity in low Earth orbit, and then move these factories and these stations also farther nearer to the moon. Then we can start sending material from the moon. This is the second. The first step could be having small factories dedicated to very special products, having a small population of technicians living in space and using simulated gravity to live in space. I still hear a lot about the studies about the effects of microgravity on human body. We already know very well that the human body is not made to live in space in microgravity. If we want to live in space, it's very easy. We create gravity only for the crews, because the factories must be in microgravity to produce all those things that can be produced in microgravity and that are very valuable for the Earth. This is just the first step. Second step will be start using the materials from the moon. It must be started immediately, and the start can be using moon materials to be used on the moon in the bases that are already foreseen by the agencies. In any case, the agencies are thinking about making very small lunar bases with just a few people. They want to make the ISS on the moon. Our idea is not this. Of course, we must start from somewhere, so they can do that. But the immediate next thing is to start developing on the moon also for getting materials from the moon, producing fuel. This is one of the points, yes, for sure, because even Starship cannot go even to the moon without refueling in space. But if for refueling in space, you bring fuel from the Earth, it's not so much convenient. You need several launches to bring the fuel to orbit and then use the fuel to refuel the Starship to go further. It's much better to create the fuel on the moon and bring it to to Earth orbit, it is cheaper to bring material from the moon to Earth orbit than from the Earth to Earth orbit. It seems strange, but if you know the dynamics, the orbital dynamics, this is the point. So start from factories in Earth orbit for very special productions with limited crews in artificial gravity or simulated gravity, and start using materials on the moon. And then the next step will be using the materials on the moon for the factories in space.
Beautiful strategy. Yeah, we have to propose that to the decisions, people who take decisions about what we should do in space. So, okay, we are a little bit out exceeding the time that we wanted to dedicate. So thank you very much, Alberto. It was really a very interesting conversation, and we will have other, I'm sure of that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all.